Hi there and welcome to this week's episode of the Gazette's Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette and I'm joined this week by former Canadiens teammates and 1986 Stanley Cup champs Rick Green and Brian Skrudland. The Canadiens moved into third place in the Atlantic Division with Tuesday night's 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Bell Centre. The Leafs have now lost 8 straight games, and Captain Austin Matthews has gone 12 games without a goal and appears to have mailed it in for the rest of the season after winning a gold medal with Team USA at the Olympics. But this was still a big win for the Canadiens, one they really needed. They hung on there at the end. Rick, what impressed you most about their performance?
Well, thank goodness they did hold on, because I was a little concerned they were going to, slip away. And obviously, when they come out the first period and they outshoot them the way they did, and Toronto was fumbling around, I said it's going to be a complete blowout. But they got some good goaltending. Timely saves by Dobish again held the fort when there were some breakdowns. But they really were rolling the dice a little bit when it came down to Toronto. Almost found a way to get back into it, and hopefully they'll put that one behind them. But it was obviously a huge win, and they've got to just keep pushing harder and finding ways for 3 periods of performing better than just spotty periods, if you will.
Yeah, that would have been a tough one to lose, Brian? I mean, that empty net goal by Jake Evans, what an effort by Mike Matheson to get it out. And goaltending, as Rick, as you mentioned, Dobish certainly looking like the number one guy. What did you take away from the game, Brian?
Well, it could be a very dangerous type of game with a very loose Toronto Maple Leaf team, and so you weren't quite sure what you were going to get. And sometimes that's the most dangerous team to play, that really they're playing for everything but nothing at the same time. So, but I thought the guys played pretty good, keeping Toronto down to 18 shots. I mean, that's a change, and that one goal against is nice to see, because we do know that we're getting upon that season that 2-3 goals should win you a hockey game.
That was almost like a playoff game, almost, Brian, just at the end. I think that was good preparation for them, I think, in protecting that lead.
Well, that desperation is what it's all about. It's the very first shift of the game to the very last shift of the game. I mean, you're playing for your life coming up here in April and May and June. So a great time to get ready for it. And they're in playoff mode. You can see the scheduling, the tightness of the standings. I mean, there's just no room here for any errors. So hopefully we can just keep going.
Yeah, well, Rick, all the hype leading up to trade deadline day last Friday, and for the second straight year, Canadiens GM Kent Hughes decided not to do anything. Were you surprised by that? Do you think that was the right move? What were your thoughts?
No, I wasn't really surprised. I think that generally they were quite happy with, obviously, what they were getting performance-wise from their group and the type of chemistry that they've had for most of the year, and they had to be really, thinking about whether they want to disrupt that by bringing a guy in or taking a guy out. And I'm sure there's conversations that were going on to see, of some possibilities. But overall, I think they were really quite pleased with the performance of all their guys, and they didn't want to change anything, and they just wanted to keep things going the right way, and that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, it seems, Brian, like there's a real sort of brotherhood in that locker room, which is sort of similar, I think, to what you guys had in '86. And do you think maybe not wanting to tamper with that might have had something to do with Kent Hughes?
Well, when you're adding a player, you're also adding a person, right? You're adding a different personality. So the in-depth of finding out about a person, a player, these guys know each other so well today. So I really shouldn't be probably spending too much time on that type of an idea. Yet at the same time, there's a bond there, and they're playing for one another. They've been doing that since September, maybe even earlier than that. And I like the idea of giving this group a chance. I think they deserved it, and we all do know that it comes down to goaltending coming up, and Dobish looks like he's getting really prepared. So that's a great thing for the Canadiens.
I mean, Kent Hughes did say, Rick, that he had a significant deal he had been working on and tried to finish it off and wasn't able to. Sportsnet's Nick Kyprios said that deal might have been with the Toronto Maple Leafs for forward Matthew Knies. It would seem strange the Canadiens and Leafs making a deal together, especially with a player like that. But is that something you might see happening this summer? Ken Hughes said we might find out what it was this summer.
Well, I mean, let's face it, there's all kinds of speculation at that time, and that's one of probably some other ones that didn't get mentioned. And, I think that the Canadians, as a management group, look moving forward as their personnel and what they have as depth in their organization to see where possibly if there is a player that they could bring in, maybe in the off season, that could boost a certain position, then they would have to look at that. But again, to get something, you have to give up something. So they'd have to have a real good look at what it's all about. And those guys are smart enough to realize which route to take so far. And there's going to be continuous stuff right through the summer. And, they will identify some of the weaknesses and maybe some possibilities of making change if it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're going to have to do something, obviously. And Nye's is one of the few key guys in their team that doesn't have a full no movement clause. That really ties their hands also with what's going on in Toronto. He's the type of player who would be a good fit in Montreal, O'Brien, if they were able to pick him up.
He'd be a good fit in any team. He's one heck of a good hockey player, and I think that they'd be crazy to try and move him. But like you say, there's not a lot of other movable pieces there. Yet at the same time, I like the play. I like where we are right now, and I like what Kent has done. Stay put. Give these guys a chance. Maybe they will end up like that '86 team and come out of it with a Stanley Cup. And then what kind of moves do you make?
It certainly was interesting last year because the Nick Suzuki asked them not to make any moves. They didn't, and it paid off. They went on a run. They ended up making the playoffs. One of the reasons I think Hughes might not have been able to make a move, Rick, is Patrick Laine. I'm sure he was trying to move him and what's left on his contract, over $8 million. He wasn't moved. He's still around. He's still on injured reserve, even though he's been practicing with a non-contact sweater for quite a while. What do they do with him now, Rick? Do you let him play any games this season? What do you do? What do they do?
I mean, you have to look at him as a depth player because he's not one that's going to take somebody else's job at this point. If they run into some injuries, maybe he'll get a chance. But listen, he's been out for the whole year. His injuries has caused a lot of problems with his performance, and I don't see him getting in the lineup at all unless there's nobody else, for them to bring in. But he's a skilled guy. We all know that. Short term, maybe if they need him, maybe they will give him a chance. But I don't foresee it at this point.
Yeah, I'd be surprised also unless there's injuries. Ken Hughes said, Brian, that Laine hasn't been a distraction, doesn't expect him to become a distraction. But do you think he can be a distraction, just sort of a guy hanging around there and not playing? And maybe he's healthy, maybe he's not healthy. Who knows?
Well, let's hope not. They're all in it to win a Stanley Cup, and it's always been a big team, little me, if that's what you're going to accomplish. And so hopefully he's working his ass off in practice, and we all know that he can shoot a puck. Maybe that one shot's going to be the difference here coming up. So if he does get an opportunity, that's the one area probably where he can help the Montreal Canadiens. Other than that, I don't see Patrick Laine putting that jersey on the remainder of the season.
Well, Brian, Jacob Fowler has been playing really well. Looks like he could be the number one goalie after that game against Toronto. But the Canadiens announced Wednesday that they've called up Jacob Fowler from the AHL's Laval Rocket. Are you surprised by that? And what does that mean going forward with this team in the goaltending situation?
Well, I do believe that you said that correctly, Stu, that Dobush has won that starting position. Who's going to back him up now? Because you do need a good backup, and I think there's where the competition. It's been there before. It's going to be there again until the end of the season, and so who will be the backup starting the playoff time? That might be the biggest question. Other than that, I hope Dobush can keep going the way he has, and they just take him out of the net to give him rest. Other than that, I hope he plays his ass off right to the end of the season.
Rick, you've been on the coaching side of this. Is it a case maybe the coaching staff has just lost faith in Samuel Montembeault and figure there's so many back-to-back games coming up that they just can't afford to put him back in net when it's so important?
It surely looks like that, and Montembeault has been given the opportunity and has come up short. You look at Fowler, he's 19 wins down there, 7 losses, over 900 save percentage. So he's the real deal, and I think he's shown so many good things when he did come up. And we know this is crunch time. You got to have stability back there, no matter who goes in the net. And Dobish, is making the team feel good about uh, giving them a chance to win every night. Fowler is the same type of guy. He's very energetic, and he's very committed to make the difference. And you need those guys back there. And I think it's time for the group to play these guys and let them do their thing. And I think that they're quite capable of doing it.
Yeah, Brian, I think they've handled Fowler well. We got a little bit of a taste earlier this season when Dobish and Montembeault were both struggling. They sent them down. Jeff Gorton said they want him to play as many games as possible. He's played a lot. Calling him back up now, 23-man roster limit is gone after the trade deadline as long as teams are cap compliant. You did a lot of work in player development after your career. What do you just think about the way they've handled this young guy?
I think it's fantastic. He's had that opportunity. He knows what he's got, that taste. He's only got 5 miles to go to change where he's living and where he really truly wants to be playing and stopping the puck. So a lot of motivation there, and especially at this time of the season. And hopefully, I've just thought about Dobish since the Olympics and how stable he looks and how confident he looks, and I think that was just a great couple of weeks for that young man's career and to establish himself as a number one here.
Yeah, he's a real battler. I know, Rick. We've talked a lot on this show about Kane's defensive problems, along with Chris Nyland, but how much of the Canadiens' defensive problems have been goaltending, and how much are on the defensive system? And are you seeing improvements in that defensive system that gives you confidence moving forward?
I think it's a combination of both. And, when you get some breakdowns, and the Canadians are giving, in my opinion, too many defensive zone breakdowns where they're giving grade A chances to the opposition through being on the wrong side of the puck. That being said, the confidence that you have with the guy in the nets allows you to make those, and I've mentioned it a number of times, the timely saves when you do have the breakdowns to allow them to get themselves back on track. And they seem to be getting that right now with Dobish. The breakdowns are still happening. He's there to make the save, change the momentum, and allow the team to move forward and have a chance to win. But that, like I said, combination. They have to be careful that they don't get themselves pressing too much on the offense and forgetting about making sure that they're in the right position defensively, because the goalie, yes, he's getting the job done. He's making those saves, but you can't roll the dice when you're getting some real tight games and hope that he's going to make that save when he's supposed to.
Brian, you were known for your defensive play, two-way centerman when you played. Do you see a lot of differences in the defensive systems when you watch games today compared to back when you were playing, or is it more or less pretty similar?
Well, the idea of not being able to rope a guy and ride him and
Yeah.
that really opens this game up. I mean, back in the day, it was a little easier when you could get Mario in a complete headlock and pin him down in the corner for 30 seconds. It's such an exciting game today, and the way these guys are all so strong and physically prepared for even that type of a game. So it makes it awful exciting. I just wish sometimes that when we don't have that play, that you just go, okay, I'm going to just ice the puck. There's nothing to go. Let's just shoot it down the ice to live another day. And I think it was a perfect example last night when, and I know Noah didn't mean to put it right on Nylander's tape, but it was almost a tape to tape pass, and that ended up back in our net. So those type of situations, as the season continues along here, off the glass high, and let's live to fight another day.
Well, one guy, Brian, Oliver Kapanen, scoring his 20th goal as a rookie.
Beautiful.
A lot of focus on his up, but this kid defensively, is so solid. And I think that's why Marty St. Louis has trusted him and played him so much. For you as a young centerman coming into the league, how difficult was that for you? And what's impressed you sort of watching this young guy play that position?
Well, first of all, you get that opportunity. I had Guy Carbonneau in front of me, and so Guy was always a go-to guy. If it, we even thought about that strong side centerman back in the day with Guy being the right-handed side and myself being on the left-handed side. So that gave us that opportunity to have two centermen that could compete in that face-off circle and hopefully win the face-off. It's always nice to start with the puck, makes your next decision a little easier. So. It's great to see him get the opportunity. Great to see him battle the way he did on that final goal, Jake Evans, and that's the type of grit that's going to get you onto that next round of the playoffs. And you saw Mike Matheson's second effort last night. I mean, that's just fabulous. I'm surprised he didn't break his neck, but at the same time, that's the sort of effort that it takes.
Yeah, he had a couple of big shot blocks earlier in that game too, Mike Matheson. Rick, one of Marty St. Louis' moves, he decided to put Juraj Slafkovsky back on the number one line with Suzuki and Caulfield. He's been playing like a beast. I mean, this kid's turning into a power forward at age 21. Was that the right move? And have you seen maybe a difference in Slafkovsky's game since he was put down on the second line with Kapanen and Demonov and now being back up on the number one line?
Well, I think, from the first game that he got called up there, grabbing a couple of goals, obviously he's pretty excited with the opportunity to go back with those guys. And, they're so talented. I mean, I look at the skill set of these guys and how they complement each other. And Slav, especially, I'm watching him closely, and his power and strength one on one is one of the top in the league as far as I'm concerned. And shooting the puck and his intelligence and all areas of his game have improved so dramatically in a year. And you throw him in that scenario with those skilled guys, you can't stop them. They just are just unbelievably good at finding each other and executing good scoring chances and getting goals. And they are really a good line, and they are very dominant. And you'd have your hands full trying to contain them, and the opposition is having a hard time containing them because they're making things happen every time they're on the ice.
We were talking about player development before, Brian. And I mean, the Habs, I mean, the way they've developed Slavkovsky, they were so patient with him. I remember the first couple of seasons, there was times I'm thinking, boy, this guy's got to go to the AHL. He's just not ready for the NHL. He looked lost in his own zone. But boy, I guess this is a perfect example of patience paying off when it comes to player development at times, especially with somebody like Slavkovsky.
Well, and there's trust within the organization. Kent hired all these guys to do their job, and obviously they're doing a great job. And obviously, since the goalie coach replacement, they're doing a great job. I mean, there are little tweaks in the game that these guys can make, and so far it seems like all this tweaking is paying off. I'm liking us right from the goaltender out, and here we are. We're 25 minutes into a Canadiens conversation. We haven't even brought up Laine Hutson yet, for gosh sake. So when you talk about those forwards doing what they're doing and be able to be as creative as they are, Greeny, that has so much to do with that back end too, being as fluid as they are and joining the rush. And I'm loving the idea too that sometimes not only are we the first man in, we're the first man back. And I've seen more Canadian forwards putting that extra effort into back checking. So they're preparing at the right time of the year. Let me tell you that.
Brian, I love that you're out in Calgary. You play for a bunch of other teams after the Habs, but you still say us and we when we refer to the Habs. They're still in your heart, right? Once a Hab, always a Hab. Is that how you look at it?
I'll tell you what. When dreams come true, Stu, and I even got to live the epitome of that dream of winning that cup in Montreal, and just that experience and that the idea of everywhere you go, and it's still the same way. When we traveled out west, it felt like a home game. Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, and still when I go do these promotions, I wear that Stanley Cup ring very proudly, and not very often do they ask, "Hey, where's this Dallas Stanley Cup ring?" Uh, even though I do have it on, wink, wink.
Well, Brian, you mentioned Laine Hutson, and we can't end this show without talking about Laine Hutson, who just continues to amaze. He has the most assists by an NHL defenseman in their first 150 NHL games. He has 116 assists, which is one more than Sergei Zubov had. Really, really remarkable to see this. And this is game 147 for Laine Hutson, so he's going to add to that. Rick, what do you take away from what this kid's been able to do during his first 2 seasons in the NHL?
He's a joy to watch. I mean, I look at how quick he is. I don't believe that he was as fast as what I'm seeing him today. He can get up that ice and back on a back check as quick as anybody on the team. And he's always involved offensively and thinking ahead and finding guys. Passes are on the stick. He doesn't make poor decisions. He's just an exceptional young player. And this is impressive to see a guy that's getting those type of results at such an early stage. And what a future he has.
He'd be hard to defend, eh, Brian, without being able to put him in a headlock like back in the day, or hook him or hold him or do whatever. Tough guy
that would be a double minor whack on that kid, let me tell you. He is just phenomenal. And like Greeny says, it's just so exciting to see that type of movement. And defensively, I mean, how, he's one step ahead. He's the Wayne Gretzky on the defensive side of the puck, too. One step ahead of where the opposition's moving that puck. So it's just been fantastic. And I think that crew all in all has tightened up, has realized that they've got to play a little better defensively, and hopefully we don't make those tape-to-tape passes anymore, and it's off the glass, and let our forwards battle 200 feet away from our net.
The glass is your friend, right, Rick?
When in doubt, like Lappy said, use the glass.
Both on and off the ice, we use the glass.
Well, that's it for this week's Hockey Inside Out show. I hope you all enjoyed it. We'll have 3 bonus episodes coming up over the next few days, so you can look for those. The Canadiens are back in action Wednesday night against the Senators in Ottawa, and then have back-to-back weekend games at the Bell Center, a rarity, against the San Jose Sharks on Saturday and the Anaheim Ducks on Sunday before the Boston Bruins come to town next Tuesday, which is always fun. In case you didn't know, Hockey Inside Out is also available now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. We'll also be back with a new Hockey Inside Out show next Wednesday.